in 2023. Property developers, such as the gold bar giving Wafa Tianfu,
ghost cities and broken promises, towering skyscrapers, empty streets, cranes frozen in time. What you're seeing isn't a movie set. It's real, it's recent, and it's China. These are the remains of one of the biggest real estate booms in human history, and now one of the biggest crashes. For decades, China built non-stop. Homes, highways, whole cities, rising overnight. But now the cracks are showing. Developers are collapsing, projects abandoned, and millions of lives are stuck in financial limbo. Today, we break down exactly why China's real estate bubble is finally bursting, and what it means not just for China, but for the entire world. Timeline of a collapse. The alarm bells started ringing in 2021. That's when Evergrande, one of China's biggest property developers, defaulted on over $300 billion in debt. Think about that number. More than the GDP of entire countries. Evergrande had borrowed from everyone: Chinese banks, foreign investors, construction firms, and most importantly, millions of Chinese families who prepaid for homes that were never finished. And when Evergrande fell, the dominoes started toppling. Country Garden, once viewed as a stable, top-tier developer, followed suit. By 2023, it too was missing payments, freezing construction, and warning of default. This wasn't just about bad accounting. It exposed a dangerous truth. China's entire real estate system was built on a shaky foundation. How the bubble was built. To understand why this crisis hit so hard, you need to understand a key part of China's model. For years, local governments in China relied heavily on land sales to fund everything: schools, hospitals, subways, salaries. Developers would pay billions for land. The government would use that money to operate, and then more land would be sold to fund even more. It was a self-reinforcing cycle: building, borrow, sell, repeat. But when developers ran out of cash, they stopped buying land, and the entire revenue stream for local governments started drying up. Suddenly, cities across China were facing a brutal reality: no buyers, no construction, no income, just empty lots, unpaid bills, and angry citizens. The three red lines and the trigger. Enter the ghost cities. These are not myths or exaggerations. Places like Ordos, Kangbashi, and Tianjin Eco-City were built to house hundreds of thousands. Today, they're nearly empty. Highways with no traffic, malls with no shoppers, entire apartment blocks, not a single resident. Why? Because many of these projects were never built for people. They were built for speculation. Apartments were sold, not to live in, but to flip later for profit. And while the facades were finished, the homes behind them were often left incomplete. These cities became real estate mirages, visible but hollow. A system built on assumptions. It all started with a boom. From 1990 to 2020, over 500 million people moved from rural villages to Chinese cities. That's more than the entire population of the US and Russia. To house them, China launched the biggest construction effort in modern history. Not just apartments, but entire urban ecosystems. Real estate exploded into 30% of China's GDP when counting all the related sectors: cement, steel, home appliances, interior design. Finance developers became supercharged thanks to a system called pre-sales. They'd sell homes before building them, then use that cash to fund the next project. It worked until it didn't. The human cost. By 2020, Beijing saw the warning signs, so they stepped in with something called the three red lines policy. The rules were simple and strict. Developers had to meet limits on debt, cash flow, and asset ratios. No more borrowing beyond your means. In theory, it was meant to stabilize the market. In reality, it pulled the rug out. Suddenly, major developers couldn't borrow. They couldn't finish what they started. They couldn't pay what they owed. And the entire system, dependent on constant motion, ground to a halt. The youth crisis. Behind every unfinished building, there's a broken promise. In cities like Zhengzhou and Kunming, ordinary people who had paid deposits, but the homes never came. Construction froze, developers disappeared, and banks kept collecting mortgage payments for properties that only existed on paper. In 2022, something rare happened in China: protest. Thousands of home buyers said, "We're done." They launched a nationwide mortgage boycott. refusing to pay another cent until their homes were built. Some stood outside banks with signs. Others wore masks to hide from surveillance. All demanded one thing: we want our home, not a lifetime of debt. This wasn't a few angry investors. These were middle-class families, teachers, office workers, first-time buyers, and they weren't alone in feeling betrayed. Global consequences. The real estate crash didn't just hurt buyers, it slammed into entire industries. Construction workers were laid off by the millions. Real estate agents saw their commissions disappear. Suppliers, steel, cement, glass, all cut production. Factories slowed. Wages went unpaid. The economic engine that powered China's rise, and the hit landed hardest on young people. By late 2023, youth unemployment passed 20%, record levels. College graduates, once promised a booming job market, found themselves stuck. Many turned to food delivery apps, rideshare gigs, or simply gave up looking. It wasn't just a financial crisis anymore. It became a generational setback. The bigger picture. Here's something most outside China don't realize. 70% of Chinese household wealth is tied to real estate, not stocks, not bonds, not pensions, apartments. Many families own 2 or even 3 homes, seeing them as the safest long-term investment. Now, those values are dropping fast. What was once a retirement plan is now a liability. And for millions, years of savings gone, confidence shattered. Spending slowed, and the fear of a downward spiral grew. The global ripple effect. But this crisis doesn't stop at China's borders. Let's zoom out. During the boom, China's property sector drove global demand for iron ore from Australia, copper from Chile, steel and cement from around the world. With construction now frozen, those supply lines are slowing. Countries that relied on exporting to China are already seeing falling commodity prices, slumping trade revenue, strain on their own economies. And then there's the banking risk. Chinese banks, especially smaller regional ones, lent heavily to developers. Now, with billions in bad loans on their books, cracks are forming. A banking crisis in China could shake global markets and foreign investors, bond markets, equities, real estate funds. Here's the question economists are now whispering. Could China's collapse spark a global recession? The answer, maybe. The timing couldn't be worse. Western economies are already battling inflation. Interest rates are high. Growth is weak. Consumer confidence is shaky. If China stumbles further, the shockwaves could hit Europe's luxury and automotive markets, US tech firms with Chinese exposure, Asian manufacturing networks tied to Chinese demand. The world's second largest economy isn't just slowing, it's structurally shifting. So what is Beijing doing? At first, officials insisted the crisis was manageable. But as things worsened, the tone changed. The government began pressuring banks to support struggling developers, easing mortgage rules, offering aid to finish stalled projects, even considering direct bailouts. There's no quick fix, because this isn't just about bad loans or corrupt builders. It's about a growth model that has run out of road. For years, China built prosperity on concrete and speculation. Now it needs to reinvent itself into an economy driven by innovation, consumption, productivity, not just more building. That transformation won't happen overnight. And in the meantime, millions are left in limbo. This is more than a real estate story. It's a story about promises, about systems pushed too far, and what happens when an entire nation bets on growth and loses control. For decades, China's rise seemed unstoppable. But now, it faces its most dangerous test yet. Whether it recovers or falls deeper depends on what it builds next. Not just in steel and glass, but in trust, stability, and vision. Thanks for watching. If you found this breakdown helpful, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden forces shaping our world.